What is it like being a Jamaican in Panama? Hi, I'm Xavier Murphy, founder of Jamaicans.com. And today, on this issue of Jamaicans to the World, I'm interviewing Diane Batchelor, has been living in Panama for a while. Hi, Diane, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good to have you. Good to have you. So, my first question is this one. Which part of Jamaica you come from?
Okay, so here's the thing. I usually answer this question like this. I come from Jamaica. Why? I was born in a compound, that little town in St. Elizabeth, up in the hills of St. Elizabeth. I lived there, I understand, for 2 weeks. Then we moved to St. Catherine. Then I know we lived in Kingston, St. Mary, then St. Catherine again, and Kingston. So when people ask me, where am I from? I don't know what to tell them. My high school years were in Spanish Town. So I guess, but then most of my life, if I add it up, I've lived in Kingston. But I'm born in a compound. So, and I'm a maroon for that reason. So when people ask me, I'm just like, I'm from Jamaica.
No, that maroon story is an interesting one, and I think you and I have to talk about that because there has to be a story in that one, and that
There
one.
is a story, yes. Yeah.
So, how did you end up in Panama?
Well, that is a story in itself because we got married in 1982. And shortly after that, Selwyn, my husband, and I woke up one morning with having had the same dream. And well, I guess the dream was so impactful. We talked about it and discovered we'd had the same dream. And so it had something to do with us being in a country that spoke Spanish, but there were tribes. And so over our life, we've watched different things that the Lord had spoken in our lives and impressed on us. We'd seen it coming to pass. But this Spanish thing, and I remember I studied Spanish at university, but my husband absolutely no language anything. And I thought maybe I was going to do Bible translation or something like that. And when I did think of ever migrating, it would have been to Vancouver in particular. Never Panama. I'd visited and it was just a place. But come one year, when I saw this thing, Panama, a haven for retirees, at the time I was nowhere near retirement. But something just, sparked inside of me. And I showed it to my husband and he had the same reaction. And so it just happened, one of these, my friend called it God incidences. One of those, it just happened that I saw that thing like about in September, and that November, we actually had already planned to be at a conference in Panama. So we thought, okay, when we come, we'll check it out. Well, by the time we came, in 5 days, we had sorted out school for the children, house to live, pay down on the house that we now live in that was being built, and bought furniture. I mean, it was just like one of these whirlwind things. And so we've been in Panama since January 2006.
Man, that is amazing. You get to a conference and then that's amazing. That's amazing.
It is.
If you don't mind me asking, how old were your children when you made the decision to live in Panama?
My oldest was 8 going on 9. My daughter, she was 3 going on 4, or 4 going on 5, I think. And my second son, my son, he would have been 7 going on 8. So yeah, they were pretty young. So my oldest, he still, to the others laugh at him, but he still can speak patois. The other 2 not so much. And then they went to an American school, so of course they come out with the American accent. But he still can do a good patois, but the others not so much.
So you're in Panama, and one of the things I went to Panama about 3 years ago on a journey to kind of see how our story went in Panama, because a lot of us are
Yes.
do you encounter a lot of Jamaican descendants where you're living, and the patois? I hear patois is pretty much almost died out. You know, there are people that speak it, but not many. You'd have to go in the countrysides and so on. Have you encountered, you know, a lot of the descendants and any patois, any form of patois while you've been there?
A lot of the descendants. As a matter of fact, when I came here at first, I thought that every black person was Jamaican. That's what I thought, because nearly everybody I met, when you asked them about their antecedents, it was always Jamaican. However, a few years in, I began to hear a lot about Barbadians, especially in the building of the canal. History, my husband is a bit of a history buff, and so he, in doing his research, realized that the Jamaicans had been here first for the railroad, then they came again. The government apparently had sent them, but apparently they weren't treated so well. So when the Americans came now or I think even from the French, when they came with the canal, the government said they wouldn't send people, but people came on their own. And so nearly everybody you meet here has some black person has some Jamaican connection. And of course, speaking of the patois, the shockingest thing for me was when I went into, yes, it's what we call country in Jamaica, they call the interior. So we went into the interior, and sure enough, we were standing there talking in an area called Bocas del Toro, and literally you heard Jamaican patois, regular Jamaican patois. There are some areas in the city, can't remember the name of it now, but there's like a very Jamaican descendant area. And yes, when you hear them speaking, you could think you're in Jamaica. So it's not as died out as you would think. But apparently there was a time in history where black people were encouraging their children not to speak English or patois, but to speak Spanish so that they could be incorporated into the society. So unfortunately, yes, some of the younger generation no longer speak even English because of that.
I'm a history buff myself, so I went to the Caribbean Museum. When I got there, I would recommend it to anyone who goes there because it talks about the history, and it's small. It's a small museum. I think it was a church building, and in Panama City. And
is it the one on the hill?
It's not the one on the hill. It's a small museum that is right there in the middle of the city. And it was just amazing, as you said. Everything you said, they said. You know, they didn't. You know, they tell them stop, don't speak the English, stop the patois. And like you said, the first wave of people that came, from what I understand in the museum, were Jamaican.
Yes.
With the French. They were treated badly. The Jamaican government said, we're not sending these people back, or we're not signing an agreement.
Exactly.
The second wave was Jamaicans and Bajans, but the Jamaicans mainly came on their own.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, my friend that took us around while I was in Panama, he spoke mainly Spanish. He spoke some English, but he would use terms. And he would use these Jamaican terms, not even realizing he was using Jamaican terms.
Yeah.
Because, you know, his descendants are Jamaican. And he uses terms all the time. And I'm like, you know, yes, you're using a Jamaican term.
It's so funny. One of the most influential Panamanians with Jamaican roots that I've met here, he never says aki. He always says haki. I'm going to bring some haki. And that is because that's obviously how he learned it from his grandfather who used to live here. Because, I mean, this is a very educated gentleman. But for him, the word is not aki, it's haki.
So my next question is this one. What do you like the most about Panama?
I like the general lifestyle is very family oriented. I like that. One of the things my son said when we just got here, he said, Mom, it's obvious that children are very important here. because almost everywhere, even in what you'd consider very poor neighborhoods, you will see a sports facility with fields, football, basketball, court. I mean, they really consider. As a matter of fact, the first time I saw Children's Day, like we have Mother's Day and Father's Day, Children's Day celebrated was here in Panama. So I really like that family orientation that they have. And then I'm also very proud of them as a nation that is supposed to be like, to those who think they, that we are third world. But when you see what this little country, I mean, you've been here, so you see the skyline, right? You see some of the buildings that they have put up that rival any first world country. So I'm very proud of them for that. I'm also very proud of Panama for the fact that despite what people like to talk about, corruption, etc., when a new government comes in, I'll have to look hard to find a government that hasn't left the country in a better place in terms of its infrastructure, because somehow everybody wants to have their name left on something. And so they will work through the night when they're coming to the end of their term to make sure they finish a project and leave their name. I kind of wish we would do that.
I like that. I like that. And it is interesting because, and I know the story is about you, but I just got to talk about my experience. And when I got there, they were celebrating, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like Black History Month there, or Black History Week.
Yes, Etnia Negra. They do have that celebration.
And what amazed me was everyone was celebrating it. The school children were brought to the museum for that reason, to learn about Black history. Mm-hmm. And they had their uniforms on, but they also had different things kind of commemorating it. And I was amazed that, I mean, I'm in South Florida, Kingston 21, but it's still America.
Yeah.
And Black history is celebrated, but the way it came together there and the way I see it happening there was just a little different with the kids, especially with the kids. And I commend them on that. It was very good.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, during that time, they have you probably know, they have this huge, what do you call this, conference center. And usually there's a week, I think, of activities at the conference center where they have the craft, the music, the food. And that is when I realized just how similar the food, well, the influence of Jamaican food has been on Panama. Because when you walked to some of the stalls, you were getting some real old-time Jamaican food.
Yeah, we had some escovitch fish there, and yes, I see definitely there are some similarities.
Yeah, yes, there is, yes.
So my next question is this one. What do you like the least about Panama?
Funnily enough, I was so happy to have listened to Ruth Kwakwa's her interview, because it helped me to put the thing I like the least into perspective. And that is what I now realize is very Jamaican in a sense, but not as Jamaican as it now I realize it is West African, or certainly the Ghanaian way. And that is this whole thing. They call it Juega Vivo, but it really is kind of like generalship in our Jamaican context, but not quite so. This thing where nobody is willing to tell you they don't know, or willing to tell you no. They will tell you something and you believe that that's what's going to happen, but it's not going to happen. But they don't want to, I guess, offend you. Ruth really explained it so well by telling you the truth. And that thing was the thing that drove me crazy. As a matter of fact, I was living here for 5 years when one day a gentleman was doing some work at my house. He had told me the work would have been finished, I think, like in 3 days. It was now 3 weeks. The work wasn't finished. I drove by him working at somebody else's house in my neighborhood, and I waved and didn't feel anger rise up inside of me. And I was, oh my gosh, I have acclimatized. I am good. Because before that time, I would have been so angry because you told me and you're supposed to be coming and da 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 da. And now I just know that's the way they are. They come when they come. They either come before the time or after the time, or they're not going to tell you. If they tell you, you go to the store and you ask for so and so and they tell you it's not there, go look for it. It's there. They just don't know, and they're not going to tell you they don't know. Just go look for it. It's there. So those kind of things used to really annoy me. To an extent, it still does, but I'm now learning that it's cultural. And Ruth, I thank you wherever you are, Ruth, if you see this, because your explanation of what happens in Ghana helped me so much.
The Ghana experience, that yes, she dug deep into some of that, and actually had me change some of my questions with other folks because of the great information she provided.
It was really a good interview, yes.
So what is one of the popular terms? People typically, we have soon come, we have all sorts of different popular terms, and you know some Spanish, or you're fluent enough in Spanish.
Fluent enough, yes.
What is one of the popular terms that you typically are going to hear people use all the time in Panama?
Wow, you catch me off guard. But but I'm gonna say Panama, here's the thing. They mix English and Spanish, like so a word like what's up. We would say what's up. They would say que sopa. No, sopa.
It's not so it's not que pasa?
Que sopa.
Que sopa.
Que sopa.
So explain, what does that mean? How does that translate?
That is it don't translate. That is their way of saying, like, instead of saying wataguan, them say que sopa. Then they will talk about hombre man and friend. And so there's all of this Spanglish. As a matter of fact, I discovered that some of the words that we now use as regular words in Panama came from the melding of the American language, or the way they spoke. So apparently, in the days of the Zodian period, there was the garbage company was a company apparently called Tin and Company. So apparently, people got used to calling the garbage bins Tin a Co. So now people will generally talk about the tinaco, and the tinaco is the garbage bin. One neighborhood is called Araihan. Why is it called Araihan? Because the Americans would say, "Oh, is that neighborhood on the right hand? On the right hand." So Araihan became the name of the neighborhood. So there's that kind of melding, which is really very interesting to hear the Panamanian. So I've had to learn, because I hadn't used Spanish for years before I came here. So coming here is what kind of revived my Spanish. But I'm realizing that some of the words that I'm using and thinking now that, yeah, man, I'm now speaking Spanish. I'm really not speaking Spanish. I'm speaking Panamanian. I enjoy it.
That remind me, every diaper called nappy. If you're gonna spray your car, you're going duke your car.
Exactly.
Not knowing that Duco is the name of the brand.
Vaseline. Exactly.
So I'm going to move on to food.
Okay.
What is your favorite Panamanian dish?
Okay, I have to start out by saying that I had to get my taste buds acclimatized, because the flavors are different. But one of the things that I discovered that I have now actually taken a strong liking to is their soup called sancocho, which is like a chicken soup, but don't taste like our chicken soup at all. But that is where you're going to find yam and, well, cocoa, that kind of, that kind of Jamaican food. That's where you find it. They don't serve it like how we would serve it as a side dish. The food, no, that in their sancocho. And their sancocho, whereas we put a little chicken back just to flavor the soup, they will put what would almost sometimes feel like a whole chicken. So when you go into your soup, you're picking up some big chunks of meat. So that's one of my favorites. The other thing that I find, and this was because of my nostalgia for Jamaica, their liver. I know a lot of people don't like liver. I like liver, and so they do a liver with their dumpling. They don't have dumpling like us. They have something they call hojaldre, which is kind of almost like it's like you make a dumpling batter, but then you make it flat and you fry it. So it opens up kind of like a cross between a dumpling and a roti. So it's swollen. It's a little bigger and fluffier. I guess kind of like what they serve, I understand, in Trinidad on the road. That kind of flour thing. But that's one of my favorite things. Of course, most of the favorite things are, I understand, not so healthy because it's their fried stuff. They have a lot of really interesting fried food. But I'm trying to be decent these days and avoid them. But yes, those are some of my favorites.
You talk about the soup. So when I came there, I went to it starts with a C. The Jamaican town there, or famous a lot of Jamaicans were there. Colon,
of course, yes.
Colon. So I went
1, 2, 3, 4. Colon, man, I come. Is when I came here, I understood it for the first time. Yes, Colon.
So I went there, and he said, "Listen, this you have to come to this restaurant and try the cow foot soup." And so I had the cow foot soup there, and the cow foot soup had pigtail, and it had a totally different flavor. It was great, I totally enjoyed it. And as you said, the soup was more food and meat than actual soup.
That's right. Yeah. Pretty good. Yeah.
So my other question is this one let's move on to attractions. And so if a Jamaican or anybody was coming to Panama, what would be the one place you would say you have to go and go visit this place? I want to, what's the one place you would say?
Okay, I'm going to say the one place everybody going to say, because really it's bad if you come into Panama for the first time and don't go. And clearly that is the canal. You have to go and see the canal. You have to go to the Canal Museum. So yes, definitely do that. And for Jamaicans, of course, the history. So you want to go to Casco Viejo and Panama Viejo. But if I tell you what I would want you to go to see for real, it is Boquete, which is not in the city. It's 7 hours away from the city. But that town, oh my goodness, I'm so in love with that town. It's a mountain town. It's cool. It reminds me so much of Jamaica, of the Blue Mountains, and they do coffee there. And I've now realized recently from a guy here in Panama who is so into coffee, he went and did a tour and discovered that the coffee that they have in Boquete started with a Jamaican woman bringing coffee and planting it in Boquete. And I never had coffee before. I liked the smell, but I never liked the taste until I got here. And out of nostalgia, I started drinking the coffee because for some reason, the Panamanian coffee smelled to me just like our Blue Mountain coffee. And now I know why. But Boquete is that little mountain town. And I say little because Panama starts out, they talk about "oh pequeña patria," meaning "oh small little country." Now, for us who come from Jamaica, Panama is a big country, right? So I mean, we don't have to drive 7 hours to go nowhere. But they think it is small, but their mountain town I'm talking about, which they'd call a little mountain town. Their mountain is really much higher than ours, and more extensive. And there is where they grow their coffee, a beautiful, beautiful area. So I would recommend anybody, if you have some days, take maybe 2 or 3 and go up into Bokite. It's just
So my next question is this one. What do you miss the most about Jamaica?
the people. And on top of that, there is something. Okay, Panama is beautiful. I really was very biased when I got here, and nothing was as beautiful as Jamaica. I've lived here long enough to realize that Panama has its beautiful spots. There's no question about it. It's a beautiful country. But I am biased. I'm openly biased towards Jamaica. And so when I go in, I feel like Jamaica's vegetation just hugs me. I feel like the mountains, even before I land, when I look down at the cockpit country, I mean, Jamaica just overwhelms me. And there are places in Panama that have beautiful beaches like our Jamaican beaches. They're not as popular, not as common as our Jamaican beaches. Like, we can find beautiful beaches almost everywhere. Panama's beaches are unique in that you have black sand, like black magnetic sand, volcanic. So that's totally different. So it has its own appeal and its own beauty. But to go into a Jamaican water, to just to see that clarity and the color, that's just and the sand. So yeah, I really miss that about Jamaica, and I miss the people. There's a certain warmth, a certain I know you even though I don't know you feeling with Jamaica. That yeah, I miss that a lot. Yes.
Well, that was my last question, but I know you recently published a new book. Just give us a quick snapshot, and we will have you back to discuss the book. There are some other shows we have that we definitely have you back, but give us a quick synopsis. You went out and recently published a book.
Yes, something I thought what is it, what don't happen in a year happen in a day. So I actually, funnily enough, I had come back from Jamaica, having spent a lovely time, and a friend of mine, one of my old friends, because nothing like an old friend. So one of my old friends in Jamaica said to me, "Hey girl, this year we're going to be 60. We need to do something." And I started thinking, cruise, this, that. Nothing appealed to me. So I put it out there and I said to people, "Tell me, what do you think I should do to celebrate my 60th?" And somebody said, "Why don't you write the book?" And so my birthday was coming up in July, and that was what it would have been about February, March. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And with the help of a Jamaican independent publisher, I got started. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. And I have the proof copy. I still don't have my proper one without the not for sale thing. But this is what came out of it. And it's a book that really tells just highlights from my life about how God has just been blown my mind in so many ways. Times when I thought things were really terrible, that I realized, on the contrary, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. So basically, that's why the title, God in the here it says meantime, because I'm playing on that word, because some of the times that I thought were mean, but really, I was just doing some beautiful things in my life. So yes, I'm very excited to finally be an author, and so yeah.
So in closing, thank you for joining, and thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for telling your story. In closing, do you have any piece of advice for a Jamaican that's thinking of actually making that move to Panama? Any piece of advice? And that's my very last question.
Yes, my advice would be lower your expectations. Don't come thinking that you're come to a first world country where everything is going to be fine. Lower your expectations. And I say this from having lived here and realized that we come with ideas that we just need to be open and just say, you know what, I'm just going to go with the flow. And if we have that attitude, then we'll adjust better. But if we come thinking this has to be this way, it's going to be a frustrating time for you. As one of the things that Panamanians like to say is, no te preocupes, no te preocupes. That means don't worry. And then the other one is tranquila, tranquila. So that's what I would say to anybody coming. Tranquila, tranquila. Don't get too upset about anything. Just chill.
Diane, thanks again for joining us. Great information. All the best on your book. And we look forward to having another conversation, probably on another show, about your book and some of the other things you and I talked about. We will catch up.
Show some love now. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss a video.